Books. Let's talk about some books. Hey howdy, welcome back to my channel. My name is Avery Jam, and today I am here to do my March wrap-up. This is technically a February and March wrap-up because I did read a single book in February that I am going to talk about in this video, and I also read quite a few books in March. So, I mean, not quite a few, but definitely more than I have been reading in February, which was hardly anything, so better than nothing, yeah. So I'm going to talk about the books that I read with you and go over my thoughts and all that good stuff. And yeah, let's get started. Starting with the book that I read in February, which was Rat Queens, Volume 1, Sass and Sorcery. This is a new graphic novel that I picked up at Barnes & Noble a few months ago, and I was very excited to read it, and I absolutely loved it. I thought this comic was amazing. It is so fun and so badass. Rat Queens is a story about 4 girls that are in a sort of gang in this fantastical world, and as one of the gangs, they're required to go on missions to sort of as repayment for the stuff that they've destroyed and the problems that they've caused. And so they go on a quest and they find out that somebody is trying to kill them, and the story goes from there. And it was a fun-filled, exciting ride. I absolutely loved this. I love all of the characters in this so much. All of the girls are so fun and well developed, and I just absolutely loved it. I also loved the amount of swearing in it. I always love some swears, so it was very fun, and that is all I read in February. So thanks, Rat Queens, for giving me one for the books. I gave Rat Queens 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. Moving on to the books that I read in March, we have The Death of Francis Bacon by Max Porter. This book is a poetry book that is 7 portraits of the death of Francis Bacon, obviously. Pretty much it just goes over Francis Bacon's last moments on Earth. And it was confusing. Like, I'm not going to say I got it, but it was absolutely beautiful. It was confusing in the most beautiful, lyrical, and fascinating way, and I actually really enjoyed it. I think this book is a good reminder that you don't always need to understand what you're reading completely in order to still enjoy it and enjoy the writing and enjoy it for the art that it is. I did think it was really interesting. It left me with a desire to know a lot more about Francis Bacon. I definitely would consider reading like Francis Bacon's Wikipedia page before you read this book, just because it helps to have a little bit of background information. But I really liked it, and obviously there were quite a few lines that I marked as wanting to remember. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in March was Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. I feel like I'm not ready to talk about this book. This book absolutely broke me. I have read both of Nina LaCour's other books. What are they called? We'll Be Okay, or We Are Okay, and Hold Still. I read both of those books. They both absolutely broke me. I was sobbing by the end of them. So I kind of had similar expectations for this one, and I think this one hit me hardest of them all. Watch Over Me is about a girl named, what's her name? Mila. It's about a girl named Mila who is a foster kid. She's had a very hard life, and when she graduates, she makes the decision to move to this farm and work there as a teacher for some foster kids, and there are ghosts on this farm. And so while she is there, she is confronting the ghosts, and the ghosts are a metaphor for her past. and so she's confronting her past and sort of coming to terms with her trauma, and it was devastating. I would recommend this book to anybody that has PTSD or is recovering from trauma. I think it was really powerful, really meaningful, and had some really, really great points. And then, of course, like always, the writing was absolutely beautiful. So I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is definitely one of my favorite books of the year so far. Then the next book that I read in the month of March was Tales from the Hinterland by Melissa Albert. This book is a collection of fairy tales that is based off of the Hazelwood and the Night Country, Melissa Albert's duology. Those 2 books are about a collection of fairy tales, and then Melissa Albert wrote the actual collection of fairy tales this year. And this book was really fun. My favorite part about it was definitely the illustrations. I feel like the illustrations just added so much to the book and the spookiness and the aura. I did think the actual stories in it were also pretty good. They weren't anything super special. They were just, you know, kind of dark, unsettling fairy tales, which I enjoyed, but, you know, it's nothing really that stood out to me. What this book did do, though, was made me want to reread Hazelwood really bad and kind of put together the connections from the actual, now having read the actual stories, to the different stories and characters in the actual book. So it made me want to do that, and I overall enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then the next book I read was an audiobook, and it was We Keep the Dead Close by Becky Cooper. This is a nonfiction true crime book about a murder that happened at Yale in the 60s. It dives a lot into the rumors surrounding the crime, all the people that were sort of considered suspects or thought to be suspects by the general community. And it also talks a lot about academia as a whole and the way women and crimes like this are treated in these prestigious universities. Overall, it was good. The research was very thorough, and I thought it was very respectful as well, especially of the victim. It goes into a lot of detail about the victim and her life and who she was as a person, which I thought was really nice. They also spent a lot of time looking at people that weren't really suspects, though. Like, they were, and there were different reasons for them talking about them, and there was different connections to the crime, but overall none of them were actually ever considered suspects by the police. And so I just thought it was a little weird that she spent so much time going over those suspects when you find out in the end. Well, I guess I won't spoil it in case anyone wants to read it, but I just felt like it was a little excessive going into the details of all of these suspects' lives. It seemed like a little bit like overkill. I did really like the deeper look into the world of academics and sort of how women are treated at these prestigious universities. I learned a lot about Yale and the way that Yale has incorporated women into its system and its learning environment, which was really interesting. It also gave an interesting perspective on how we look at unsolved cases and the way that we look at these people that might be involved with these cases. So overall, I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in March was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I read this as an ebook. I think the best way that I can sum up this book is what I wrote in my reading journal, which says, "This book did not renew my will to live, but it was an interesting notion," which is how I feel about this book. Obviously, The Midnight Library is a book about a woman who decides to kill herself, and she kills herself, and she is brought to this place called the Midnight Library, where there are books and books of all of her other lives she could have lived, and she is given the chance to look through these books and sort of test out new lives that she could potentially have. This idea is really interesting. The execution was not amazing. I mean, I felt like from the very beginning of the book, I knew what was going to happen. I knew exactly how it was going to end up. You know, I knew that in the end she was going to go back to her old life and completely forget, you know, all these new lives and, you know, decide that her own life was the best one to live and that she could make the best of it. And I knew that, like, right from the beginning. It was kind of hard to want to read it the rest of the way. I mean, I thought it was good, and I thought that the writing was good, and I thought that the, like, parallel lives were a really interesting concept. But it didn't give me the emotional impact that I think it gives other people, which is fine, you know, it's not everything's for everyone. I did like that they gave the library a bit of a scientific explanation. I liked that they weren't just, you know, some random magical happenstance, or God, and that's even worse. So I liked that about it, and it made me really wonder sort of what my other lives would look like if I had other lives parallel to mine, or if I had made different choices. So it was interesting to think about, definitely, but not something that I really, you know, stood out to me. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And those are the books that I read in March. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books in March. So not a ton, but definitely more than I have been reading, and I was quite proud of the amount that I did read. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, and you can subscribe to my channel if you want. All of my links to my social medias and all that good stuff are in the description below. And that is all. Thanks. Bye.